20th, as prepared by Erin. If you haven't had a chance, feel free to grab a chance now. And then we'll give it a minute and let me know if there are any questions, comments, or corrections. Everybody's quiet, so I'm going to take a guess that we're okay with the minutes. Thank Erin very much. Motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of November 20th. Anyone? John?
Motion.
Yep.
Second. All
Second.
Aye. And
Aye.
hand.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There are none. Minutes approved. Thank you so much, Erin. We've got. I'm going to read. Shaheem, did I have the intelligence to send you the agenda for today?
I received a bunch of stuff. Let's see.
Take a look if you have agenda, put it up on the screen because I want to introduce something we used to do, which is just make sure everybody, I'm not missing anybody. The solar people folks, I think I kind of missed last time.
Second loading up.
That's great. I'm putting this up because we can move quickly through our agenda today, but I want to be sure I'm not missing anybody. Certificate of appropriateness votes. The applicant does not have to be here. Support concept and design, maybe, but I think we're all right on that. Certainly on the C of A applications. I have just two today, which is Promenade Hill and 241 Columbia Street. Am I missing anybody on C of A applications who feels they should have been on the agenda, got left out?
Hi, Phil. This is Samantha with Taconic Engineering. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Craig told me to come on. We don't seem to be on the agenda. It's for 310 Warren Street for a proposed sign.
Okay. Then if Craig told you to come on, I'm going to make a wild assumption that I dropped the ball. 310 Columbia?
Warren Street.
310 Warren for a sign?
Yes.
You were on the agenda.
Thank you.
I'm glad I did this. Thank you so much for straightening me out on that. Let's go then to certificate of appropriateness votes. Commissioners, you should have the list. Just to refresh, you probably do remember 453 Union. There was some brick exposed that created an opportunity to do something actually better for the building. They wanted to go with that. 60 South Front Street has been up for a lot of different stuff. This is the Kitty's awning, which we approved. 520 Union is obviously City Hall access. 8 South 4th Street was approved, excluding the historic railing on the steps. The applicant was going to give that a think and decide next steps. And 5 Street roof installation. So from the top, may I have a motion to approve? Shaheem, you can take the agenda down. I want to be able to see everybody. Cool. 453 Union Street, a motion to approve C of A is prepared by the city attorney.
I make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul. May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you very much, Hugh and John. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Or any opposed? None. Approved. 60 South Front Street is Kitty's on new awning. Motion to request the city attorney. And whoever's got their phone on, shut it off. May I have the motion on 60 South Front Street, please?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul. John, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
520 Union Street, City Hall access. Motion to approve the first phase of that, really, but the plans that were presented to provide compliant access at City Hall. Motion, please.
Could we just read that, please? Because I haven't been able to read it.
Okay. I'm going to ask Victoria if she could give me a hand on 520, if you have the C of A you prepared handy.
Yeah, I think that sounds, that looks good to me. I think that covers what we discussed.
Okay.
Good. Thank you for taking a look, Chip. Motion to approve 520 Union C of A. Anyone?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you very much. And Hugh, second. All in favor?
Aye.
8 South 4th Street. We'd approve the work excluding the historic railing on the steps. Motion to approve 8 South 4th Street, please.
I'll make that motion.
John, second? I'll second.
Well, yeah,
All in
second.
favor?
Yeah, aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Good, thank you, passed. 518 State Street, solar roof installation. Motion to approve C of A, thank you. That's you, and second by,
I'll second.
thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, passed. Victoria, do you have we had done this once before on, I think on 620 Union as well. Can we show the commission the supportive concept and design doc? Great. So again, the applicant has been working with other commissions here, I guess, particularly planning, and they have found it helpful to at least be able to say that they've come before HPC and we support the concept and design. This is not a C of A, and it's not approval. As they said very forthcomingly in the meeting, they're at the phase now where they're going to working drawings at another level of detail. So we're going to see them again. This is just to support them going forward. Motion to approve the amended preliminary memorandum regarding a certificate of appropriateness.
Motion.
John,
Victoria, pardon?
I'll second if there wasn't one.
Who made the original motion?
Hugh.
Hugh.
You and Paul second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed. So that support document will be issued. Generally speaking, what we usually do on applications is put signs on the top of the queue because it goes very quickly, and we have it's 310 Warren here.
Yes, I'm here.
Terrific. Would you be able to share your screen so we can see the application, get a concept of the sign?
Yep. Can everyone see my screen?
Sure.
Yes,
Whomever's on the phone, don't. Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer. Thank you.
So I'm Samantha with Taconic Engineering,
Samantha.
representing
I did that well. Thank you.
representing the owners at 310 Warren Street for the Maker Gymnasium. And this is just an old picture of the building, what it looks like. And this is the proposed sign location and sign dimensions. So they want to do hand painted with stencil right underneath the lighting, and the lighting is going to remain. So the lighting that's already on the building is not going to change. And the proposed sign is 22 inches by 26 feet.
And it's painted on.
Yes.
Cool.
could we see the original, the photo, please?
Yep. It may look slightly different now as they're open for business. So it might just look a little cleaned up. This is just a Google image street view. So the sign would go right under here.
Are the awnings gone now?
I am not positive on that.
So
I think they are.
all we are opining on today is the sign.
Yes,
Nothing else.
And that will be painted directly on the brick?
yes.
It's not a sign. It's painting on brick.
Okay. Well, no, I think the code would consider it a sign.
It's
As
conveyed.
As per code, a painted sign is a sign. Still requires a sign permit.
There you go. A sign is a sign. It's a syllogism, but useful in this case. Thank you for laughing, Chip.
Yes, of course. Always supportive.
No, I know I need it.
I mean, I think this is worth commenting on because this is, say, more permanent than a wooden sign, no matter how you distinguish it. It is painted onto brick. Like if this was painted onto the building next door, we might not be so enthusiastic about it, right? So I think it's worth pausing on for one moment to say we're authorizing them to paint brick. Truthfully, this is not it's a really cool building. But it's not particularly
John, I
distinguished.
think your point is well taken. I think that it needs to be considered. Certainly, we wouldn't approve painting a brick of every, or painting a sign on every brick building. And I think that distinction needs to be made here. It's interesting that actually we have a good example in Germantown at Otto's Market. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but Otto's Market is was also formerly a grocery store. It was the Central Market. And they painted a very similar typeface or shadow type bordered sign on brick. It's also a 20th century building, as this building is. It's also quite a grocery store type storefront. And it really is remarkably successful, I think. And I think that the issue of painting the brick is one to be considered. However, in this circumstance, I think it's appropriate, it fits, and it's kind of interesting.
I actually share your opinion on that, and I would vote for this. So I just wanted to call that out.
Appreciate it.
I agree with what they both have said. And I also think because this is a somewhat industrial looking building, that it is suitable for the look and feel of this building. It wouldn't necessarily be suitable on another type or style of building, but I think it looks great here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it looks good.
Well said. I then ask for a motion to find the waive a public hearing, find the application complete.
I make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul. And a second, Hugh. All in favor, please. Aye.
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 A motion to request the city attorney to prepare a certificate of appropriateness, which we will vote on in our last meeting of the year, 2 weeks. A motion to request a C of A be prepared. Anyone?
Make that motion.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Second.
Thank you, Miranda. All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for your time and
Samantha,
allowing us on the
apologize
agenda.
Not getting your name right after you were kind enough to introduce yourself.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm happy you're going forward with the sign. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Is there an applicant present from representing Promenade Hill?
Samantha, could you stop sharing your screen?
I think Gail's going to take it away, right?
Yep, I'm here. My name's Gail Whitwer-Laird. I'm from Star White House. I'm joined also by Chris Anderson of Star White House, and we'll be presenting the concept plans and schematic design for Promenade Hill. I will share my screen. Let me just pull up the presentation. One minute. And I have Chris in the background in case anything goes completely haywire. So,
Hi, everybody.
Okay, here we go. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Let's see. Now I can't see it. Okay, so first I'd like to say thank you for having us to present the plans for the park. We are thrilled to be working on this park. It's an incredibly special place in the city's history, if not even for the region. And we've been working diligently since July, closely with the mayor's office, and especially the mayor himself, Michael and Rob Perry, who has been they've been a great team to help usher this along quickly. As you all may know, this was part of the DRI, one of the 10 DRI projects approved in 2018, and is the first one to go into design and construction. So there's some incentive to do it quickly, since everyone's been talking about the DRI projects for a long time, but now we're finally at that exciting moment where the improvements will become a reality. So I know all of you are very familiar with the site, so I'll go quickly through the front portion of the presentation and leave time for questions and comments at the end of the presentation. But don't feel, this is a small committee. If you want to raise your hand during the presentation, please feel free to do so. As I mentioned, the project is a downtown revitalization, has a downtown revitalization grant. The city is contributing approximately $500,000 as a match, both with in-kind services and support along the way. The initial grant was targeted almost exclusively for universal access. As you know, you can't get to the upper promenade if you're in a wheelchair or pushing a stroller. So the primary goal is to create an accessible route to the historic promenade. However, in so doing, we've tried as much as possible to do more improvements to the lower plaza to make the space itself more inviting. It's not a suitable front door, I think, to the promenade now, and I think what we've tried to do is connect the two spaces more meaningfully in this design. So I'll just read through the goals. We are going to provide universal access to the upper promenade. We'd like to integrate that route into a welcoming landscape. We'd like to reinforce the visual relationship between Warren Street and Front Street and Upper Promenade. We'd like to provide a visual and proper programmatic terminus to Warren Street. It's an important spot on the end of Warren Street and is an important public space in and of its own right. So we'd like to keep that terminus of Warren Street on the lower level open for ends and beginnings of parades, performances, informal gathering. We are improving the plantings there, but we are mindful of keeping them simple and easily maintainable. And we are keeping the sight lines from Front Street into that plaza open. We will be adding 2 additional light fixtures along the southern end of the accessible route. And finally, one of our goals was to connect more meaningfully to the upper promenade by using similar materials and keeping the ground plane simple and green and adding some additional canopy trees. So I'll go now into the process to date. We started in earnest on the design in July. We had a couple of informal public events in the park and had an open house shared with the group Arterial that's doing the streetscape work at the end of August, sharing early concepts for the park. We also at that time issued a survey that was up on the city's website and handed out surveys at that public event. So I think we've done a fairly good job at including the general public in the design process and have gotten some really good feedback from a broad range of community members. Right now, we're in the phase where we're taking those early concepts and refining them into construction documents. The goal here is to finish construction documents by mid-January, so it can go out to bid in February. The mayor requested that we get it finished by Winter Walk of next year. So since we're having such a constrained Winter Walk this year, it will be nice to celebrate the opening of this park next year. So that's the goal, and we're working very diligently to meet that goal. In parallel to your review, we're also sharing the schematic design plans with SHPO, and we'll be getting their feedback on that before we go further into the contract documents. So, oops, went the wrong direction. So here's an important diagram. I think we did this early on in the process, showing the layout of the park. So the main portion of the park, the historic park, is really this upper promenade area. And what we've come to call, although it's not the real name, it's all Promenade Hill Park, we've been calling this the lower promenade. So this is kind of the gateway to the park. And then there's the play area here. So our work is really focused on this area and creating that access to the upper promenade. We're doing very minimal work on the upper promenade. Let's see, I have to erase my drawing set before I go forward. Hold on. Okay. If I start drawing on it, the drawings go into the next slide, and we don't want to do that. So I'll save that more drawing for the end. So the next image shows you the challenge that we have. The elevational difference between Front and Warren and the upper promenade is 14.5 feet. So it's a fairly steep incline. And in order to make that accessible, we have to have either accessible routes less than 5% with no handrails, or slopes of 1 and 12 with handrails. So those are the criteria that we had to meet in order to make this accessible. Here's a view of the existing condition of the park. You can see the pavements in less than optimal condition. This is an important slide here on the right. There's a high voltage power line that runs across the main access to the park. And you can also see the existing catch basins, bollards, and brick walls from the existing design. I have a few slides to share with you of existing conditions, which you all know. One thing I think important to note here. Oops, go ahead. Does someone want to say something? No? Okay. One thing we really wanted to do is, as much as we're going up to the promenade, is reinforce the relationship of the space back to Warren Street. Right now in its current condition, it doesn't really feel as lively as the rest of the street. And so we want to make, as much as the gesture up, the gesture back. So this is an important view here. And I will mention, we have also been in contact with Arterial that's proposing improvements, accessible improvements throughout the town, but they will also be working on making the intersection at Front and Warren more pedestrian friendly. So this is a great synergy between two projects, and I think will make a really big difference here. Cars do kind of race across Front Street pretty quickly. So, whoops, here's some more existing conditions photos. There we go. Showing, you know, really a pretty dire need to do the renovation. So we will be removing the existing pavements, these existing brick walls. We will be retaining the existing lighting, and the light fixtures are the same light fixtures as are found on Warren Street, and we plan to retain those and add 2 of the same design. So we'll be adding 2 light fixtures to the city grid. So just a little bit of site history. I would like to publicly thank the History Room at the Hudson Area Library. We reached out to them early on in the process, and a volunteer gathered images for us and took quotes out of history books, and was a really wonderful contribution to the project. I really loved the first image on the left. This is before the wrought iron fence went in, and you can see the buildings that used to be up here and the benches. You can see a steep staircase going down to the river, but you can see how it's filled with people. There are families, people taking pictures. I think this has been a popular spot you know, since the day it opened as a public grounds, one of the oldest in the country. The next slide, I'm sure all of you are familiar with these vintage postcards. St. Winifred was added later in 1896, and the wrought iron fence went in, I think, shortly before that. I have the exact date somewhere, and the benches were also changed sometime in the late 1800s. But again, this postcard shows people sitting, people gathering. It's an important destination. These photographs are of what we're calling the lower plaza, or the lower promenade, are shortly after the construction of the work for the urban renewal in the 1970s. This area was formerly a roadbed. Warren Street went past Front Street up to here, where the top staircase is. So this is a former roadbed that was turned into this, what they called in the urban renewal plans, a park and play area. This is essentially the layout of the park that's there now. The foundation for the merry-go-round is still there. The benches are still there. These are the walls that you see today, inclusive even of the bollards and drainage. So that's a pretty long time for a park to go without renovation. So we really are trying to do as much as possible to improve the space, although we can't, with the current budget, address the whole site. And I have a suggested phasing diagram at the end of this presentation. When we did our early concepts, which we shared in July, it seemed that the most practical thing to do was to have the ramp hug the southern end of the site and keep the central access of the site open. We explored, I know Chris, who's on the line, we definitely have at least 24 versions of a ramp to get to the top. Of varying geometries. We tried to make it all 5%, so we wouldn't have handrails, but that really didn't work with the existing elevations. One of the challenges here is actually keeping the grades around the Chamber of Commerce building. We want to keep that relationship to the plaza. So that sets a pretty large flat area right in the middle that we have to maintain. So so some of the designs I'll go into the early concepts. One we called the meander, which was less direct, but did have sections of ramp. And then one we called the terrace, which was a more condensed, more traditional ramp clustered towards the top of the plaza. What's interesting, there wasn't a clear favorite. People liked both. In the survey, we did a word cloud of the surveys. People want seating, a lawn. There's nowhere to sit there really now. So seating, green space. People like the idea of having some informal seating at the center of above the plaza, looking back, and maintaining the open public plaza there at the end. So we took the feedback from the surveys and input from these two concepts, and we've kind of condensed them into one. For lack of better words, I'm going to call it a hybrid. We did bring this plan to the Common Council. There was a request there was a spray shower in this corner here, if you can see my hand. We're relocating the spray shower with a new spray feature into the playground to kind of consolidate the play uses in one area. But we won't be doing other improvements to the playground other than that. We may add some picnic tables in addition to the spray feature. There was a request to have picnic tables on the upper promenade. They'll be movable, and we'll work with the city on their location and type. So they won't be anchored in any kind of concrete foundations or anything. Something I should mention while we're looking at the plan is we were very mindful of being sensitive to this perimeter wall of the historic promenade. So we, in doing the new staircase and the new ramp, we've kept the new structure outboard or eastward of this existing line. We will have to saw cut into that area in order to install the new stairs and ramp, but we won't be going beyond. We're keeping the width of the staircase the same, so we won't be going beyond where the wall has already been cut. There's also an existing rock outcrop right in that corner, and we're trying to leave as much of a buffer as possible to preserve that rock outcrop, because I think it's an important part of the character of the landscape. Although some of the rock outcrop will be buried because we have to raise the grade in order to get the ramp up to this elevation of 76.6. So that's an important feature there. The landscape at the lower plaza will be, as much as possible, a simple open lawn and some trees and seating. And we will be reconstructing the plaza, hopefully with as much special pavement as possible. I'll talk about materials later on. We're at the point where we have the geometries and the slopes worked out, and now we're refining what the materials and site furnishings will be. Let me go down to the next slide. So this is something as we're refining into the construction documents, something came up a couple of weeks ago in a meeting. We weren't planning on making any changes to the upper promenade, but it came to light that there's a marker in the south western corner of the park, and that marker should be accessible. So we are going to do a compacted stone screenings path from the paved area to that corner. We think that's kind of, right now there's kind of a dirt beaten path. So what we'll be doing is essentially formalizing that soft path, but making sure that it's accessible. So if someone in a wheelchair gets to the top, they actually have access to the entire length of the promenade down to that historic marker, in the interest of universal access. So the staircase is aligned perpendicular to the waterfront, and then the plaza is aligned on the axis of Warren Street, as is the flagpole. So for now, this is a preliminary palette. We're looking at the amphitheater seating being of stone block. We are getting cost estimates on stone. We're trying to use local stone. We'd like to make the stair treads out of bluestone and the copings on the walls adjacent to the stairs out of bluestone. because we think it should have a kind of a lasting feel and a feel in character with the upper promenade. The plaza itself will be a combination of colored concrete and unit pavers. If we can do stone pavers, we will. But like I said, we're in the process of picking those materials and costing them to make sure they fit within the budget. We are proposing benches in the lower area here along the plaza, and a couple in this kind of middle terrace, if you will. And we noticed in the old postcards that the bench looks very much like the Central Park settee, which is actually still in fabrication. It's a cast iron base with thin wood slats. So if you look at this bench and then go back to I can go back to the postcard at the middle, it looks almost identical. So we thought that would be a nice gesture for the lower plaza and give a nicer feel to the lower plaza to connect it to the upper promenade. And the upper promenade has concrete benches, but maybe at some point the upper promenade could have this bench as well. And I think, you know, using the same furnishings and materials to start to really unify the two spaces, so it feels like one big park. Right now, the two spaces are very disconnected. So I mentioned earlier, you know, as we've worked on this, you know, once you work on one piece, you see there's much more to do. So our work is really focused on the accessible route and the plaza. But we have listened to the community. There's a real strong desire to have more play space here and improvements to the playground. That we believe is a project in and of itself. Right now, the Chamber of Commerce is leased, but it could be part and parcel of a expanded play area here. There's a fairly substantially sized parking lot, which you know, there's parking on Front Street. It could be reduced here. There's you know, quite a bit of public space that could be reconceptualized should the city choose to do that in a next round of funding. We also think that the upper promenade itself, while it is in good condition, could benefit from some restoration. The walls should be repointed. The iron fence is miraculously intact after all these years, but I think it's partially because there's probably about a ½ inch of paint on it. It's very heavily painted and could use some select restoration. So we recommend at some point in the near future, the fence get a proper restoration, the walls be repointed, the benches be replaced with the settee bench, and the lawns and vegetation be rejuvenated. We may do some lawn restoration in this project, given it's fairly cheap to do, and we are doing the screenings path up here. So we wanted to share that larger vision, but today we're here just to present the concept for the universal access to the upper promenade. You can see in this plan in blue, that's what we're proposing to be the bluestone treads. And right now we're actually looking at a bluestone curbing for the sides of the ramp. And I have some pictures of that if people are interested in looking at materials in more detail on this call. So that's all I have for the presentation. I'm very happy to take any questions, comments. You know, we still haven't done our 100% contract document, so I welcome input and look forward to advancing this into a real project in the new year.
I have a question. Mm-hmm. Is there any aspect of phase one that you wish you had accomplished in this that you didn't do? Was there any major concession that you had to make in your mind?
Well, I think the concession that we're facing would be with materials. You know, we'd love to see the plaza with stone pavers, not concrete, right? Concrete, as nice as you can do concrete, it just doesn't age as well as stone. And, you know, given how long it's been since there's been investment in the park, right? It's been 50 years plus. It would be nice to leave materials of permanence. So I think we'd like to do absolutely the curbing on the ramp in stone. We'd like to do the stairs in stone, have stone coping along them, and it's a big plaza, and as everyone knows, the cost per square foot of finished stone is expensive. So right now we're looking at, can we do, a combination of banding and unit pavers, so that it's more than just, this is Hudson's Piazza. So it should have that texture and detailing deserving of a small piazza.
Well, you might, there are many people in town who might want to support such a thing, right? If you had a list of priorities and were coordinated with a not-for-profit, people, I suspect you could raise some aspect of money to support that.
Right.
Probably not your responsibility, but
no, I think it's a good thought. Certainly the fence too, every time I look at it, I think, oh, it would look so beautiful if it were restored. So, we'll keep that in mind as we develop the cost estimates. We actually sent the preliminary plans to a quarry across the river. I don't know if any of you know New York quarries, but they do a beautiful bluestone. It's actually supposedly more dense than regular bluestone called alcove bluestone. And so we're looking at unit costs directly from the quarry. So we have a really accurate idea of the colors and the cost of the stone that we're proposing.
Well, I think this is one of the most exciting things I've seen that's come across in the entire time I've been on HPC.
Oh, that's very nice of you. Thank you.
Really
It's
incredible. And so it seems so sensitive to me, the way you've revered sort of the historic park and created something that's going to be new and exciting that the whole town can use.
Oh, thank you.
Gail,
Yeah.
Tell the commission again, what do you need, I guess, from us today to help you go forward? Because there are layers to this in terms of timing and breadth and so on. So exactly what are you making at this point in time that you're asking for the commission to provide a C of A, or are you more asking for a conceptual approval and we'll go to another round at a different level of detail? I'm just not sure where we are.
So that's a good question, and Michael, please step in. I think a bit of both. These are not the 100% documents, and I'm happy that we're sharing them with you at this phase. Rather, no one likes to see things when they're 100% done, but we are moving very quickly to get those 100% documents. We're trying to do a 90% set by the end of the year and 100% set by mid-February. So I think we need the C of A before we go into construction. So there's definitely time for people to mull it over and offer input now. But we need the C of A by the time it goes out to bid. So I suspect, the bid period, end of January, beginning of February. So I don't know, I think we're flexible with the process as long as we can have something formal in terms of an approval by
I
mid-January.
guess I was just going to add one other piece to that, is that in addition to before we go out to bid, we sort of need this completed, and the city of Hudson is looking to bond so that we can sort of cover the cost of sort of the difference between us paying the contractors and getting reimbursed from New York State. And the hope is that we would bond this project at the same time as several other projects that the city is working on. We can't go to bond until we have a C of A. So there's a lot of moving parts, both with this project and with a bunch of city initiatives. So I would say that the sooner we can get a C of A, the better. And regardless of whether or not, regardless of what that timeline is, I think we can commit to come back to HPC as desired. If you want us to come back at other stages, I think we're happy to have those conversations. So the sooner we can get the C of A, the easier it'll be for the treasurer's office to sort of handle some of the mechanics of funding.
And you're just looking for phase 1 at this point, right?
Yes.
So phase 1, as I understand it, is basically the access from the lower to the upper.
Yes, and the plaza and the staircase.
Okay.
We are also doing a ramp just because the goal of the project is accessibility from the parking area into the plaza. There's an existing ramp there now that doesn't meet code that we'll be improving. So there's this little spur here, but the bulk of the work is the lower plaza and the accessible route.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out how to be most helpful. I don't want to complicate, but there are a couple bits to it. One is sort of what's on the plate immediately that we can wrap our minds around and understand. Then there are a number of things that are important in terms of final materials, et cetera, that are still in the works.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then there's the nature of this beast, which is if it were an individual applying, it would trigger. I'll ignore that. It would trigger a public hearing. How much have you guys been through in terms of public input, public hearings so far? It sounds like you have done it a bit.
We have. So we did some initial outreach, and because of COVID and fortunately the timing with the weather, we've done the public outreach on site twice, once in July and once in August. We also put a survey on the city's website. We did an on-site meeting with the Bliss houses, and we've been meeting regularly. We meet bi-weekly with the city. So that is the extent of the outreach. And at every phase, we've actually, Michael's been very good about uploading the documents to the city website.
Okay.
And it was presented to the council as well.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on how to disaggregate this so we can move these guys forward, but not be blindly approving stuff that's still in process?
I mean, it sounds like if we're going to issue a real C of A, we need final materials for the board to approve. So I think today you guys could give it your blessing if you're all happy with the concept, so that they could, give them comments, give them an idea that you're okay with the concept, so that they can feel confident moving to the preparation of the detailed plans.
Okay.
And again, we're only talking about phase one.
Yes.
I think that there's a level of specificity that's not here, and I understand that, and that's not being critical at all. There's a concept here that I think is stunning and a huge contribution to Hudson, and represents a lot of work and a lot of thought and so on. What I would like the commission to do today is not do a C of A. I don't think that's appropriate yet, but it will be in January when you have a little more detail. Maybe we can issue a C of A for a broader element than just the whatever it is work you're doing. Put it that way. You decide what work you're needing to do on the contract going forward. We can give you a C of A for that. I'm more comfortable today basically having a bit of discussion, but basically preparing a document of general support of concept, ideas, massing, access, and all the stuff that you put together. And hopefully that will stand you well till we get to the next phase of detail. Does that make sense?
But if they're coming back in a month with the more detailed plans, I'm not even sure we need to take that step of a vote on a memo, right? I mean, Gail, did I understand correctly that you'll be back?
Yeah. So I think what we could do, do you meet in January? You'll be meeting in January? We could, at that point, like I said, we're kind of juggling the budget and materials right now. We'll have more refined plans in January, and maybe January would be the point to if it's far enough along. I think we'll have all the materials done. We might not have, every single detail, but I think materials wise will be complete. We could bring it back then. The only thought that comes to mind about today is that we are sharing it with SHPO, and they might want to know if the local preservation community has seen the plans, and it would be nice to be able to share that. So if there was something informal or that we could share with SHPO, that might be appropriate. And likewise, I think we'd like to share any comments that SHPO has So, you know,
That would
if-
be helpful too.
right? You know, like, you know, they may have deep in their archive something that we don't know. So I think we want to keep that line of communication between the preservation community open and kind of maybe tie the bow on it in January, if you will, to have consensus.
I appreciate what you're saying about SHPO, by the way. When I believe the project was the Opera House, they sort of came to us kind of, it wasn't sharing comments. I'll put it that way. It was sort of baked in. I would much rather do it the way you're saying, which is that we know what SHPO's thinking. And absolutely, we meet in January, whatever the second Friday is.
Okay.
In January, and that would give us sufficient time. If you, I understand what Victoria is saying, that it may not be necessary. If you feel it would be helpful, my guess is that the commission is very supportive, but I shouldn't just say that. I think we should take a vote on that. If you wish a memorandum of some form from the commission, we can do that. Would that be helpful?
I think so. Because we are working, you know, this is a state grant, right? So it's going through to the Department of State. We're sending it to SHPO. We want to make sure that we have adequate documentation. So I think a general statement of support would be desirable.
Okay. Then we've got one more. We've got folks waiting who've been waiting patiently to come on 31 Columbia. Some other comments, or could we proceed?
Phil?
Yeah.
Hi, I don't know if others have comments, and I do want to concur that the overall concept of this is really wonderful. And the use of space, the way of achieving the access, the conceptually honoring the long history of this and making connection to other great parks in New York State, like Central Park. The only concern that I want to raise, and I think is worth discussing, is this question of materials. I understand the cost constraints, and actually the pavement concerns me less than the concrete block seating, for example, for the amphitheater. I think you've made such a point of using natural materials that suddenly having formed concrete blocks, to my mind, it violates the unity of the project. And I understand, as I said, that there are cost constraints, but I think my comment would be to continue to use natural materials in every possible location, particularly for something big like that seating that sticks up and is going to be, it's going to attract the eye.
Actually, we are proposing to do the block seating in stone. The only thing we might consider in concrete would be unit pavers, but the stone in the, if you kind of, but the midpoint or the mid terrace that we would tuck into the topography, we would do of natural stone, probably with a honed top and a natural rock face finish. So here's an example of, this is actually the Onondaga limestone block. So I 100% agree about the natural materials, and that is our goal as much as we possibly can. But like I said, the plaza itself is big, and the unit costs for natural stone are quite high.
Yeah.
And so
I understand that.
Yeah, no, but absolutely, we 100% agree with that approach. And as we, like I said, as we refine the budget, we will we'll prioritize the high profile areas for the use of the nicer materials.
Thank you.
I would just like to say it's a terrific contribution to the city, and I think we should be completely supportive of this design and this concept. And I agree with everything that Miranda just said. So we look forward to seeing more details.
Okay.
And I'm happy for the commission to make a statement in support of this, I think it's perfectly appropriate in concept.
And another thing that may be a concern is handrails, because we have the wrought iron fence, we have the settee benches, which are cast iron. So again, the materials of those handrails it's going to be important that they fit with those historic materials. You probably won't be able to afford cast iron, but something that really works with that.
No, I appreciate that comment. We actually just had a discussion in the office about the handrails the other day. And I think right now we're looking at them being powder coated steel, but we would powder coat them black so that yes, cast iron, I don't think we can
forget it. I know. It's a shame, but
yeah, but I think we will keep them fairly, they'll be they'll be metal and powder coated. And I think we intend to keep the design very simple. Somewhat minimal, acknowledging that it is new, but at least in material connecting to what's in the upper promenade. But that's actually a really important detail, because there is quite a bit of handrail on the steeper sections just by code.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes.
given that this project will be bonded, I think we need to adhere carefully to the code requirements. So I'm going to recommend that you schedule a public hearing on this for the January meeting.
No problem.
Also,
We'll do that.
rather than wait until January for the board to adopt this memo, you could make a motion today authorizing the chairman to sign a letter indicating that HPC has reviewed the concept and it has no issue with the concept, but that the applicant has to return for review of specific materials.
Understood. Would anyone make that motion?
I'll make
would.
that motion. Oh, I'll
And a
second.
second, thanks very much. In favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. So, guys, thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's really exciting.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Really great
Beautiful work.
Great input.
Thank you
so
all.
Let me see if I can unshare here. There's Chris. Say hi, Chris. Chris is like the brains behind the slopes there.
No problem.
And I will mention one more thing that I forgot to mention. We have been sharing the grading plans with the Department of Justice to review the accessibility components.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to schedule the hearing?
Pardon?
Do you want to schedule a hearing, or do you want to wait until the new submission is received and we'll schedule it for that meeting?
Let's see how it goes. Tentatively, I'm not looking at a calendar. It would be our first meeting in January, whatever the second Friday is.
Okay. So we'll just need the plan sufficiently in advance to be able to get
notification out.
Yeah.
Understood.
No, we're working as quickly as we can.
Yeah, on timing and tell you what's happening.
Okay.
We do a public hearing. There are a couple ways of doing it. Sometimes it's the first thing on the agenda, or sometimes we ask to open the meeting a little bit earlier, say 9:30, and do that, and then go directly, if we can, into your application. So come on.
Okay.
Thank you.
And just one point of clarification, getting you what you need in advance. When would that, for the January, I think it's January 9th would be the second Friday. When would be, when we should be getting, January 8th. When would be the best time for us to be getting you materials for review ahead of time?
Probably New Year's Day sounds, I mean, somewhere around there. About a week ahead would be terrific.
Okay.
Okay. No pressure, Chris.
So I know what I'll be doing New Year's Eve. That sounds.
It does sound sort of perfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to sign out.
Okay. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know folks have been waiting from 241 Columbia Street. I spoke to Jane Smith earlier, and I see that Victoria Milne is also on. So welcome, you guys. I know that took a little more than I thought in time, but you're here, and go forward. It's good to see you.
It was interesting. It was a great project. So no problem at all. Thank you, everyone. So today I'll be doing the most of the talking. Jane Smith, Space Smith Architects, resident of Hudson. Know some of you. Good to see you. And Victoria is on as well. So we are very excited to present to you what we have in mind for this great project. I'm going to do my share screening. This is always the most nervous part. Okay, did it work?
Looking good. Columbia Lodge design proposal.
Okay, so if you remember, we came to you earlier this year and we got an approval to do weatherization, which included taking off the front area of the building that was hanging on by, by a screw barely, and to replace the windows in kind, 2/2s, to do general weatherization, to put a metal roof on the structure, and to renovate, restore the upper siding. So what happened out of that, we have not finished all of that work, but we have done the demolition. And I think we're all extremely pleased with what we have here. It's really a beautiful, sweet structure that, as you can see with the front off, there are these double doors that were internal, but now they're external, and they were original. You can see from, or not necessarily original, but the siding continues around that bump out, and it's really quite lovely. So this is what we are working with now, and our approach has really been a less is more approach to the design of this project. If you look at it, this is now the existing structure, and with the cupola, there are no longer stairs, but the stairs did go all the way out to the front, and they were not code compliant stairs. But with our plan now, we will be able to, and you will see what we're doing is we're going to be pulling the doors down to a mid-level, so that the rise from the front of the stairs back to the building is less, and so that the stairs really work on the site much better, and they don't extend all the way to the sidewalk. The other thing that we're going to be presenting, so the front is really going to be very clean and simple and completely code compliant. The back, what we are proposing is to add a greenhouse so that you can have access from the back, from ADA and also into the building. But again, the idea is to do something that maintains the feeling of the base beautiful structure. What we're looking for permission for today is to lower the front entry, and this is what I will show you drawings that explain this. Lower entry with stairs half inside and half outside to allow for safer code compliant entry stair. Entry roof, again, to be standing seam metal to match the main roof, which has already been approved. Entry doors to be new, energy efficient, and modeled as closely as possible to the existing doors. So that's the front entry area. To replace the existing basement door, move to the east, door to be similar to the new entry doors. Right now, the first level door is right under the stairs, and we'd like to move it to the left. Install cupola windows, replace unweathered louvers with awning windows on 3 sides, sized to fit existing openings, divided light to reflect the division of double hung windows below. And then the addition of the greenhouse at the rear facade, light metal and glass framing attached to the rear of the existing building allows for accessible entry and toilet at the alley side of the building. Now we will have to go before zoning for this. We've been talking with Craig and we might have to reduce the size of the greenhouse. We'll do whatever we need to do to comply with zoning or to get an acceptable variance. But we wanted to show it to you today and get your feedback. To me, to us, it's like the Morgan Library or you know, the British Museum, where rather than add something non-historic to the building that takes away from the form of the building, this is a light structure to create an entry to the back and is barely seen from the street. And then cover the existing stucco base with wide board siding, and that's something that we're still looking at it, but again, we wanted to bring it to you as an option, as a consideration. Right now, the bottom is it's concrete and it's in not good shape. So we are considering covering that, but again, not continuing the same clapboard down, because we want it to have a feeling of a volume of a full building, not kind of a raised building with that looks like someone dug up the basement and just left it. But we want to also maintain the difference in feeling from the top to the bottom. So you can see with the location of the doors, see the doors used to be up at that level. And by doing this, which creates a mezzanine inside, and then the stairs are split, they go up and they go down. And so what that does is it's just a much more inviting entry into the building. So it really looks the same, but this is just lowered, and then the stairs are able to rise from that front platform to the front platform. And here is where the door that used to be underneath is now being moved to the left. And these are the windows that right now are louvers, but we would like to be able to put glass into those and to be able to get some light down into the space, but also within the existing openings the way they are now. This is the side view. So you have the stair, again, much more gracious in terms of its height. And this little door is just an access door. It's really not really visible to the underside of the stairs, either for garbage or for some meters, things like that. The small awning, which would mimic the metal of the roof, and then the clear story windows again. And then this is the greenhouse in the back, which again is not meant to feel like it belongs to is part of the main structure, which is has such great proportions and feeling to it. The bottom of that greenhouse would be a stucco, and you would be able to just come, the doors would come straight in. Let me see what I have here. So this would be the back, double doors leading into the building at the back. This would be the sense of the building, the full building. And I think that it simplifies, it keeps the grace of the building, and is something that I would be bring back the life to this wonderful structure. So this is our plan. And I think that think that's the last of our presentation here. I've got some other things that we can refer to, but I'd love to hear your comments on the design.
Jane, I like everything you've presented. Could you talk more about covering the foundation, which is, I think, it's currently, I think, concrete covered or stucco covered stone or something.
Yeah, oh, that's and this is something, let's go back to it. Let's look at it. This is, so, I'm interested in hearing what you all think, because again, now you see, I think now that you've seen it, you can see more that this will come back down to this level. And so the doors will really sit halfway between the stucco and the siding.
Mm-hmm.
And so the feeling, and again, we've got, because this is, you can see that this is in pretty poor condition. And we still have to think about how, in fact, we will attach that siding, even if we do it. So there is a chance that we might not want to do it, but we really wanted to come to you and get your opinions as well, because we thought that if we could do a wide board that's not an overlap shingle, but just a simple wide board that we could connect, and it could feel more integrated, but also at the same time not continuing the
mm-hmm.
same look all the way down.
Could I
So
follow up?
yeah, Chip, I'd be interested in hearing what you think.
I like much of what you're doing in the direction that you're going, and while from a strict preservation point of view, moving the doors is certainly not that. I think that extending the tower form down to the lower level works. I think that lowering the doors down do work. I sense from Paul's question a concern which I share about covering that stucco foundation with a siding material. My inclination would be to pursue a stucco repair, replacement, restoration rather than additional, rather than another form. I think that one of the problems with the wood siding is in the execution at the side of the building and how it interfaces with the grade, because the siding won't actually be buried into the grade. It will need to be held off. And I think that much of this building, in its aspiration of verticality, is diminished by that confusion, if you will, of that siding in its placement over the stucco. So I would be inclined, particularly because you're also using stucco as a base for the new greenhouse, which I like very much as a completely modern form that is independent of the building. I think that the greenhouse as a concept is certainly appropriate. Another thought I have about the louvers in the tower. I rather like the idea of understanding the desire for light and understanding the desire for weatherability of the window installation. I rather like a louver over those windows, and actually in some of the way that the barn across the street from the train station that we've reviewed recently, they perforated southern end of that with a concept of spaced siding in order to allow a dappled light to come through that. And so I kind of like the reference of the louver historically, and to make reference to this as a religious building. The other thing I would consider, would suggest that you consider, is if you could go to the drawing that you have of the front elevation. One thing to consider would be adding a second door on the right under the right-hand window, even if you don't need it, even if it's a blank, even if it doesn't have glass in it. The formality of the symmetry of this building, I think, would be improved with an opening under that window, as you have the opening on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I would have to look at the floor plans and see what's exactly under there.
Yeah.
To consider that, because, you know, by doing what we're doing, we're already taking away some floor area inside, because we're creating, again, this mezzanine and then stairs going up and down on either side. So, so we could certainly look at it.
Yeah, even if it were a recessed niche, even if it were articulated in a way that's not really a door leaf, but a blind niche, that could, you know, I think that symmetry of that front is something that's very graceful about the building. And I think it's a loss to have that basement door spin that off.
Okay, we can certainly look at that. And the louvers, you know, we had wanted to get as much light in through that as possible, but I think that we can study having louvers that...
They could be simply slats. They could be a more modern version, if you will, of a louver. It could be even sort of an abstraction of a spacing out of the siding. But I think that the, and again, maybe rather than dividing those lights, those windows into the two light windows, maybe it works to keep them a single piece of glass and then covered by the slats.
Yeah, so that's what we would do. If we were going to do that, it would almost be, the glass would be on the back.
Correct.
Of the
So it's a more modern insertion and interpretation of achieving that balance between the louvers and the light. I think that could be something that would be valuable to explore.
Chip, what would you think about the idea of having louvers on the front of the building, but letting them have glass on the other three sides, which would enable them to bring in more light, but would keep the louvered appearance for the front facade?
There aren't actually windows on the back side of it, are there?
No, there aren't on the back side, but
they are on the sides.
Yeah, there definitely are on the sides.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to keep the solution the same all the way around rather than to do two different solutions. But, you know, I think it's something for Jane to study and consider, just in the concept of the whole thing, and look at.
I have a question.
I appreciate your thought, Miranda, and we'll thank you for that.
I appreciate your desire to get light in there, and I think that will make the whole that will sort of lift the whole building.
Jane, is the wide board on the bottom part over the existing concrete or stucco? Is that part of what you're proposing today, or a concept you're thinking of going forward?
It's a concept that we wanted to get your feedback that, we haven't priced it. I mean, one of the things that, as Victoria, I mean, it's really terrific that she's taken this project on and is doing what she can to make this, bring it back bring it really to something that I think is very strong for what it ever was as a building. And so the thing with that is that even the detailing of that, because it would have to be proud of the top. And so we don't know what that detail is yet even. So my suggestion, because it was to bring it to you all and see what the thinking was. I'm hearing, unless somebody else speaks up in favor of it, that the feeling is more to stay with the stucco, which is the much easier solution and probably the much less expensive solution.
I'm happy to be contrarian on that. I'm recollecting very clearly your when you initially presented this, it does look like the differentiation between the materials, and maybe just a matter of also the physical condition of the house, does actually look like a house sitting on something as opposed to any kind of integrated structure. And I was getting somewhat enthusiastic about the wide board, but if that can be deferred, I guess what I'm trying to do is break this down to what you need to proceed to work. In the near term, we can always come back and look at other stuff. If
there's a way, to get approval of the plan, and if there's a strong preference one way or other, then that's one thing. If there's not, then if we could be allowed, if we were allowed approval for the boards, then we could end up saying we're not doing the boards. If it ended up, I don't know exactly how that works. Does it have to be approved one way or the other, or could it be an option?
Yes.
Optional approval?
We would have to approve the boards, would be the best way. And then if you chose not to do them, then essentially it's a like for like repair on the stucco. So you don't have to come back for that. If we only approve the stucco, we could make the boards, we'd have to approve the boards. Is the short story, but we can approve everything else except the boards.
Can I just say something? I think this is extraordinary, and clearly Victoria's living by her commitment to restore the building in a sensitive way. I don't love the boards. I think it changes the entire facade. I think this building wasn't designed to have a double length, clapboarded facade. And I think it de-emphasizes the idea of a foundation for this building. So to me, if you can avoid that alteration, avoid it. That would be my opinion. There's so much change to the building that if you can just retain that level of integrity about what was the foundation versus what was the facade, I think it would be beneficial. Otherwise, I love it. I was going to say something about the windows, but and I agree with Chip. Wouldn't it be great if you could keep that element there? But if it can't, to me, the foundation is more important.
And I agree with John about the foundation, and with Chip also. I'm concerned about the side where it goes into the hill. And I also think part of the history of this building is it's this very simple little aspirational church built on a kind of impossible spot with a stone basement. I think it tells the story of the building better when you don't cover up the basement.
So I'm hearing strong feelings. I know Victoria's on, and I can either speak for you, Victoria, or say that I think that we'd be willing to lose the boards. So, Victoria, do you want to chime in?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jane. Well, I am a little bit, as Jane represented, I think I am a little bit on the fence about masonry versus boards on the bottom. And so I can yield on the boards. Part of what's appealing about the boards is that what is now the basement, the concrete basement, is going to be an important functional floor. So putting, cladding the masonry kind of humanizes and warms up that floor. I want to not feel like you're walking into a clammy underground concrete basement, which you are. So from a overall vitality of the building sense, there is something to be gained by putting wood on the outside to make it feel a little bit less like a clammy basement, because that's what it is. But a good stucco job could also be very nice. I did want to bring up that I feel very strongly about having glass in the cupola. There are many, many great benefits of our solution with the stair coming into the building as it is now. And one of them is on the inside where you guys don't have jurisdiction, but now we have a double height. Well, it's really almost a triple height entry with the lowered stair, a lowered stairwell, and then the cupola above. And that is celebrating the one big gesture in this humble little building. And having light on the top of that coming in from all three sides is actually going to be a really important part of our design. So, and another thing about the glass is, in my research about the building, I learned that these vents in these towers, like the classic Howard Johnson's little building, with the vents in the cupola like this, those vents are traditional built-in HVAC, or rather climate control. So they would provide a chimney effect in the hot summers, pulling the heat out. And they also provided cooling in the winters. Warming in the winters. So the idea of having the glass there and having it be remotely operable was really important to me to continue the ability to use these windows the way that they were designed as a kind of passive temperature management. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners who want to add to this? One way to go forward, or one way I think we could go forward and serve this well is, first of all, I do want to say that that Victoria and Jane have saved something that easily could have been lost and was very close to being lost. So that's pretty cool, talking about historic preservation. I'm thinking that the board would accept a motion now, I hope, to approve everything that has been proposed, other than the I guess the wood cladding. But I'd like to hear from folks on the commission who've not spoken yet. Anyone?
Yeah, it's Hugh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, referring to the windows at the top of the cupola, I think that is very important. Yes, we're modernizing the building in terms of look and function. I think the windows, while letting light in during the day, also emit light out in the evening as a beacon, which this building originally was. And I think that really, says something about the design and, the past function of the building and the future of the building. And I like that.
Agree.
I think that, not having slats and having those windows for all the reasons we discussed also gives it the, the landmark status, if you will, that we were all trying to achieve. So I'm all for that. And I think that you know, if the wood slats on the bottom portion of the building are not something that everybody is wild about, you know, I could see, you know, living without them, although I do not think that, I think it works, you know, having two different widths of board, going down to a couple of layers of stone or brick. Again, you know, yes, it wasn't what this building was, you know, 75 years ago, but it is now taking on somewhat, you know, maintaining the original design and you know, keeping the original basic structure and look, but adding some things that bring it into the 21st century, which is what we're trying to achieve here. So yes, that's a personal choice of Victoria and Jane as they move this project forward, but I don't have an issue with that. But overall, as you know, reiterating what people have said, you know, fantastic project, and you know, really, you know, something that will really shine on Columbia Street. So great job.
I have a question for Craig, the CEO. Craig, are you on?
Yeah, I'm here.
So if this is going to be a commercial building, have you looked at whether this meets ADA standards, since this is such a big renovation, and do they need to think about that now while they're doing this renovation?
Well, let me just say, Victoria, that we absolutely will meet ADA. And that was one of the things for the back entry, to have it be an ADA entry.
So so there'll be some kind of ramp to the back?
Well, it's if you look at the, let me go. Okay,
right,
so
I didn't see that there was a door.
There is a slope, and so at the back, the doors would, you would be able to go directly into the building.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be an issue that you'd have to come back for later.
Okay. Are there other issues that need to get resolved, or are we just saying that the one sticking point for at least part of the commission is the siding? I guess is my question. Again, on that, I understand that it is from an originalist point of view, obviously not what was there, that there's a story behind it. But I also agree with what Victoria and Jane had said, that comparatively speaking, that building was dead. That stucco siding, even with a good job, can certainly be attractive and neat and clean, but doesn't have the same life that wood would have. Forgive me. I appreciate the fact that you want to preserve as much as possible, but I think it is weird not to acknowledge that if these folks had not stepped in, there would have been nothing to preserve in another year, and their efforts are applause-worthy. That said, I don't know how to proceed. I guess we could go forward, folks, with a motion.
May I just ask one other question regarding the greenhouse, and what is the detailing and the thinking behind the details of the materials and the are you looking here, Jane, for concept approval, or are you looking for construction approval?
Well, Chip, we haven't really dug into the detailed design of the back of the building. We really wanted a concept approval. Now, I don't know how much more detail, because it really will be a simple frame. It will be some sort of a prefab kind of building, but it will be very clean, very simple. We'll try and keep all the mullions as small as possible, as is shown here. So I don't know how much more would be needed that would have to we would have to come back to you for, I'm not sure.
Well, if you're looking just for concept approval here, then I think that the preliminary design drawings which you have here for the greenhouse would be adequate for us in terms of concept. They wouldn't be adequate for us in terms of a construction. I wouldn't think.
Okay.
Um,
Well, if that's the direction you give us, then we would come back for that, but we would definitely like to have, because we wouldn't want to spend the time really designing it in great detail if the concept wasn't
Of
approved.
course, and much would hold for the front steps and the handrail and exactly what that construction, how that construction is put together. We don't have details of that now to evaluate in terms of construction. I would like to say that, Hugh, your comments about the lighting of the tower are really right on. I like that very much.
Okay, thank you.
Are those doors reused? Are you reusing the old doors or are these new doors?
No, these are new doors that are new doors that will be in kind to the existing doors.
So what are we saying the missing bits are? Specs and detail on the railing and the doors? So either an actual or some more detailed specification, and some additional specification on the greenhouse. Is that it?
And I think you need the light fixture, right?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
two members of the public have their hands raised. Would you indulge the public and allow public comment or questions?
Sorry, let me just finish this discussion because I'm trying to see what, yeah, go ahead, Ronald. What do you got?
I have raised my hand, and Christabel Goff has raised her hand, and Matt McGee would also like to comment. For myself, I would just like to say that given that this is an individual landmark, I would ask the commission to consider scheduling a public hearing on these proposals. Now Matt will speak.
I just wanted to make one point, which I think would greatly improve what is being offered here. There are other things I would think could be done better, but the one that I think violates the original look of the building is the door into the basement. On the right-hand side of the building, there's a very large window, and it goes pretty far down. That window could be enlarged and made into a door. It's on the right-hand side. What would be, if I'm thinking correctly.
This is the existing front as it is. I'm not seeing the door that.
Lean sitting on the side of the building.
On the side of the building, not on the front. It's on the right-hand side of the building, which I believe faces east or west. It's the west side of the building. There's a large window there, which goes pretty far down. And it could easily be opened all the way to the ground. And this would be less disruptive of the existing character of the building. And one of the things that made this building very striking is that it has a very blocky nature. And the real view of this building is from the corner, from the side, looking toward the west. You'll see the east wall and the facade of the building. And that's the real view of it. This is, interestingly enough, the real view of the Parthenon. Parthenon was not designed to be seen head on. You looked at it from the corner. And this building actually functions the same way. So that door could be over there. And the other point I would make is that the steps as they exist and where they land is not a violation of code, as I understand it. the steps only have to be 4 feet in from the curb. And at present, I've forgotten, I did measure it. They're roughly 4 feet 6 inches of the steps that were there. And so there's really not a code reason that I can understand to reach steps and lower the front of the building that way. I think it's an unfortunate move, but and I think the other idea, the greenhouse on the back, I have no problem with that. I think that facade of the building will never be what it was originally anyway. And it would make it more useful. But I do
You want to
think
respond to any of the comments just made?
Should I respond?
Well, I didn't
But-
understand the code. Well, you don't have to actually. You can
Phil?
take it and not respond. Yes.
This is Craig with City Code. I just wanted to, because Victoria asked the question earlier regarding ADA compliance, and that will be assessed from the back of the property. As far as the code compliance to the sidewalk, minimum would be a 4-foot clear opening and 2 feet from the curb. So they're actually trying to make that sidewalk accessibility a lot more than what's already, or what was there. So it would be strongly encouraged to get them steps moved back. The door on the right side, I don't know the measurements, but that's an architectural design based on code because it has to meet the egress systems. I don't think that opening on the side will meet egress systems. But I just want to throw that out there because right now we don't have an architectural design based on code. Until Jane and the owner get that information to us, all these questions that are being recommended can't be even discussed, or they could be, but they can't be decided on until I approve it based on the fire code and the building code. And Jane's well aware of that.
Yeah.
well, I will thank you and say that I think there should be a public hearing, and I think there needs to be more time spent thinking about this. I also think that taking this stuff off and revealing the beautiful stone, local stone, limestone, would really be quite striking. I've seen buildings where it has been cleaned off and repointed, and it's extremely beautiful and inviting.
Can I stop you a second? A question for Craig. Are you saying that from a code perspective, this application is not complete?
To allow construction to move forward, yes. As far as what they're looking to do is to get obviously the historic poly approval to move forward. I know there was some things that Chip, I think, brought up. And I got this application, I think, Wednesday, and I didn't really get a lot of time to review it. But I do not have a detail of the stairs. I don't have details of, fire code and egress systems and accessibilities and things of that nature. What I do see appears to be code approval, but without details, obviously, I can't approve it. As far as the historic end of it, for what's required for that, yeah, somebody brought that up. You need the details of materials and sizing, and all, because if I can't approve that, then obviously you folks wouldn't be able to approve it. But it's really about the details.
Yeah, and let me be clear about that. This small building has gotten a lot of attention and deserves it. And we wanted, in good faith, to bring it to you all and to see how you feel about it before we go to all the trouble of doing an expense of putting together the full set of construction documents. That will happen, and we will go through every process that we need to, and we will, respond to all these things and complete our drawings and go before zoning. and do a full code review, all of those things. But these are your input and feedback to tell us whether we are headed in the right direction is critical for us to go forward with the next steps of this project.
Okay.
You're exactly right, Jane, and you and I had discussed that, and that's why the application was submitted, because it was really to get some information from the HPC. That's why I brought that up, because you know there's obviously some comments that are being made that are not 100% ready for that yet, in my opinion. And you and I talked about that. That's why we got it over here. You can figure out what you want to do before you can really get your hands right into it, and this is what you're going to do.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, this is Ronald Kopnicki again. Mrs. Goff had something that she wanted to say, but she's having microphone issues. So on her behalf, I would like to relay her comment that she would request more detailed drawings of the front of the building, which the appearance of which she thinks is rather altered from what had been existing. And I would concur in that.
So I think generally speaking, we're all asking in different ways for a higher level of specs, and that's understood, I believe, by the applicant and understood by code. I want to get back to trying to be responsive to what the applicant is here for. Today, we probably cannot go forward with the C of A until we have specs, but they're asking a legitimate question. Are there big issues that they need to put on the table? It is my best understanding, and that doesn't mean it's the right understanding, that in terms of what the commission has had to say, where there was the greatest doubt or skepticism was the wide board solution over the lower part of the building. And that generally speaking, we were good on all the other things proposed, but wanted some greater specificity. Commissioners, is that accurate, or did I miss something in terms of the feedback that the applicant needs?
I think that's correct.
Yeah, it's a conceptual,
Yeah.
We're agreeing with the concept.
Okay.
And
Yes.
the details are to follow. So yes.
So
Yes.
I'm going to repeat that so it's clear, because you asked for that and you're entitled to it. We're essentially in agreement with where you're at and we're going forward. There's obviously some doubt on the wide board solution versus the stucco.
Thank you very much. And we will, we will come back with more, but we will be proceeding with our design in this direction. So.
Terrific.
What there was a comment raised in terms of a public hearing. We'll figure that out when you schedule. Attorney Polidoro, what's your thought on that?
Well, the code does require public hearings for anything other than, a minor modification. And so given the public interest, I do think a public hearing would be appropriate.
Okay. What we'll try to do then, Jane, when you're ready at the next level of specificity, I will work with you or however we need to do it to schedule that.
The problem with that, Phil, is that in order to get to the next specificity, we've got to continue drawings, and we've got to, and if the public hearing comes up with the idea, for instance, that the door cannot be lowered, that's a significant change to all of the construction and everything that we're doing. I have no problem with some of the details with the finish of the bottom level, but clearly to have to finish the full design before we get approval of the direction that we're going, the greenhouse, maybe in the public, if we spend time designing the full greenhouse and then through the public hearing, the greenhouse in concept is not approved. So I do have a concern about what exactly is needed for the public hearing if we're going to do one, and how quickly can we do it? And
Look, if
so-
I think can I say something? I think that's completely reasonable. And I think we have enough here to do a public hearing.
Okay.
And we should just do it for them so that they can get certainty. We can say we can just have the conversation we had, but with the input from the public.
Understood. Then
I agree with John.
Fast so that they can move quickly. That's all.
Right, and I agree with.
Public hearing?
No.
This is a public hearing.
It is, it's not.
No, there's the public, although the public did comment today, they're not, well, Victoria can explain it better than I.
Right, a public hearing requires notice and basically an invitation for the public to comment. The chairman was gracious in allowing a few members to comment, but there wasn't a notice put out so that other interested persons could have that opportunity.
let me say something to clarify where I know when we were talking about public hearing is hearing with emphasis on the H. They're not dictating, nor is anybody dictating to the commission. We do want to get people's views and input and so on. So the scenario in which we've all worked together on a solution that we're comfortable with, and individual X, Y, or Z from the public doesn't like it, does not determine the outcome of what the commission decides. It's input, period.
Right.
I want to be really clear about that. Folks who are on this call today have had a long interest in this building. The people who spoke out have been advocates to the degree that they could for the preservation of the building, and speak with sincerity and passion, but we don't have to agree with them architecturally. Or we might, but it ain't like that. We have a public hearing already for whatever the second, the meeting in January is. Did we say that was the 6th or 7th day? One of those. Can we do 2? I'm trying to figure out how to move you along. And you have enough information here to go to a public hearing. We could do it at the next meeting up, and I suppose we could have, does that make sense, folks, to have 2 public hearings in one meeting?
No, let me just ask Victoria something, and for clarity here. The applicant before us is asking for a concept approval, and they're not asking for detailed approval. They're not asking for construction approval. They're asking for concept approval. If we were to take this application to a public hearing, that public hearing would be for concept approval. It would not be for construction approval.
Correct.
So if the applicant would like, I think Phil, you can chime in on this, but I think that if you were to call right now for a waiver of our public hearing for this application, as we frequently do with applications, I think that would probably be denied by the board, I'm guessing. So I think there's been a request for a public hearing. I think that the board would want to have a public hearing for this concept approval. If the applicant wants to move more quickly and complete construction documents and have a public hearing with construction documents, that would be the applicant's choice. But what we have before us here is not, it is for concept approval. And as Jane has introduced her remarks, she was looking today for our input. I think that
Yes, and I apologize, but I was on the Preservation Commission, but it's been quite a few years ago. And so I haven't been as involved in what you all do now, but we did not need to have full construction documents at the time that I was on it. Is that a requirement now to have full completed construction documents in order to come to the Preservation Commission?
Not construction documents necessarily, but anything on the exterior, they would need to know the type of hand railing and its design, the size, the specs of the stairs, the size, the materials. So for the elements on the exterior of the building, you need all of those details because the approval is keyed to exactly what is being proposed.
Also, I might add to that, that the CEO needs to review those documents prior to our review of the documents, so that, because Craig is going to review them for code compliance, and so that we don't authorize something that has not been reviewed by Craig. That sequence we have in place now for Craig to review a set of documents that we then in turn review. So all these issues relative to ADA access and other code issues are not before the board.
Okay, so what I'm confused about now is, and I was fine with that whole process, but now with the idea of the public hearing, am I hearing now that there could potentially have to be 2 public hearings, or there's a public hearing on concept only?
There could potentially be 2 public hearings, so there was a concern here about going to construction documents until you have approval, but most applicants take on that risk and come to the board with, very detailed plans. That's what this board has to approve. So there's a risk that there'd be a public hearing for concept and then a second public hearing for the detailed plans. It's a possibility. So, I mean, I think you've heard a lot of opinions from the board today that should make you feel comfortable going to the next level, but.
May I speak here for a sec? Is it, from what I'm hearing, is it a possible scenario that we get out of this meeting today with an approval for everything except pending details on the stairwell and the greenhouse? Because that's what I'm hearing from everybody, is that you want to see our details on the stairway and the greenhouse.
And lights and all of the lights and handrails.
Windows. And
Windows.
Yes.
Type of window.
But also remember Craig's comments just a moment ago.
Yeah, that goes without saying. We're not going anywhere without Craig's approval. Yeah.
Well, maybe this will help. And this is Craig. The proposal needs to be in detailed of not just materials. Materials and that stuff and design would be for historic. Details that code is looking for is in compliance with building codes. So when we're putting in a door, what's the size of that door? What the way does it swing? What's on the other side of that door? What's the path of egress? The stairwell, does it meet riser and tread height? Does it meet the width? The handrails got the right height? These are all detailed construction documents that we need to say, yes, this is in compliance with code. Then once that's approved, then it goes off to a regulatory board for whatever position, such as historic. Now they can make their approval based on the code approval. You see what I'm saying? It's like anything. That's why, and theoretically, when this is applied for, we reject the application because it doesn't meet all the codes, such as building codes, city codes, every code out there. So when I got this, Jane and I had talked. I had said very clearly that it's going to go to historic for them to get an idea of what's going on. We don't have enough detail. I don't have enough to make a code review on this. If you're asking my opinion, this is not approvable by code because I don't have the right information. So I don't know why there would even be a public hearing. It's basically to present what you're looking to do. This is what you want to do. I always tell every applicant, you have the right to propose to what you want. It's up to the regulatory boards and the code to say whether it's approvable or not. Okay. Then it would go off to a public hearing, in my opinion.
But in terms of, let me interject, in terms of the drawings that you showed today and what your desires are in terms of the door positioning, the windows on the cupola, etc., that's what you want to do. So if you were to spec out this is what the door is, it's what it's made of, these are what the windows are, this is the lighting fixture, and add those details, because most of the work is done in terms of design. That gives, I think, the HPC enough information from a historic standpoint to make a decision. Is that helpful? You know,
Yeah,
you've already
and we're
done,
close to that. I mean,
you've done the bulk of the work already.
Yeah, you're right, Hugh, and we're close on that. And so if we could go away, but so I mean, from what I've heard today, I can assume that we're in pretty good shape here, but the thing with the public hearing,
The situation, if I could just interject for a second on the question of the public hearing, if we do have a public hearing that is established with notice to the public and an invitation to the public to come, then we will be able to get a broader spectrum of public input on this project. And I think that could be advantageous to everybody. I also think that making sure that Craig is comfortable with the basic things of egress and size of the steps and so forth and so on would prevent there being the possibility of having to redo a plan. It seems to me the streamlined way to deal with this would be to make sure that Craig is comfortable, schedule a public hearing where we invite the larger public and then vote. And as Phil said, we solicit the input of the public, we listen to everybody, but then the commission makes the decision. So it doesn't mean that there's going to be a negative or a positive. It's just a question of hearing what the public has to say. But right now we're only hearing from a few people, and we could hear from a wider spectrum of people if we did have a hearing.
I just want to say one thing, especially in light of our history on this.
Mm-hmm.
Every hearing costs me money. Every time I see you, it costs me more money. This is already a labor of love that is expensive. So just keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria.
Hey, Phil.
Where I am at on this, guys, I think that.
Craig wants to talk.
Oh, go ahead, Craig.
I just, again, we're concentrating on a public hearing. If you got an application in front of you with a proposed plan, this is what's being proposed. It sounds to me like it's not 100% what they want. This is not a completed application because we don't have all the details. This commission in the 7.5 years I've been here has never had a public hearing on an incomplete application. And basically this is, you don't have all the detailed information based on 169 of the city code for material, design, sizing, appearance, everything. Okay. I don't even know why a public hearing is the question right now. This is all in the planning stage with the applicant and the commission and the code. That's just my input.
That's what I was trying to say before. The
Exactly.
concept is there, that this is what you want. Detail out all of the doors, windows, lights, windows, etc. And then we can have a meeting where it can be approved and you can move ahead or not approved for whatever reason. But I think that's where we're at. The concept is what you like. I think it's a good concept, and we move forward to the next level and be able to give you whatever decision the board comes up with at the next meeting. That's generally how it's done.
Is whether that meeting, let's assume for argument's sake that we're finding the application incomplete based on the comments from code as well as from the commissioner that it would not pass as complete. The question on the table then is the applicant proceeds to fill in the missing bits. Code has an opportunity to interact with the applicant and see if there are any missing bits or changes required. Does that presentation with a complete application, are we trying to get that done concurrent on the same day that we have the public hearing? Or is it going to be multiple steps?
I think it should be the same day.
I do.
Me too.
So my best Jane, I don't know your construction timing and so on. We had already agreed to do Prospect Park, I believe on the 8th or whatever of January. So that would put this out to the 22nd. Could that work? Is that an issue for in terms of timing for you guys?
I'll have to talk to Victoria offline, but from Spacemith's point of view, we're good with that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, Phil, real quick question. Are we not having a meeting in 2 weeks from today?
No, we are in the first meeting in January, but we have a public hearing on that date.
Okay. I didn't know if the 18th was a scheduled meeting or not. That's 2 weeks from today.
Sorry, did I screw up the calendar? Forgive me.
We are meeting on the 18th. Yeah.
Today's the 4th. We have a meeting on the 18th. Forgive me, Craig.
Hey,
So will that affect public hearing?
So we could do the park on the 18th. Right?
That's up to you. I brought that. I'm asking because I'm looking at the calendar and I thought we had moved these dates to accommodate for the holidays. So the 18th would be the actual last meeting of the year.
You're right. It's 2 weeks from today.
So this application could come back then, and then if they're ready, have a public hearing on the next meeting, which would be in January.
Correct. What about that, Jane?
So that's on what date again?
December 18.
2 weeks from today.
I don't know. I have to talk to my team about that. And because so what you would need now, Craig, we aren't going to have a full set of, construction documents. We'll have, I mean, but all of the design details we will have completed. I mean, the code, the plans can be far enough to do a code review, but they're not.
What we would need, Jane, for this commission is the plans for the exterior of the building and any of the elements that are affected by the inside, such as when you're adding a door. The code's going to look at, does that door work for whatever's on the other side of it? Does it meet path of egress? Does it meet ADA? Whatever the case may be, as long as that door gets put there and it's an historic feature that they want to approve. The exterior of it, the moving a window, the stairs, that's a biggie because the stairs are obviously right in front of the building. It's an historic review. What's the detail of the stairs? What's the material? What's the sizing? All that has to be approved by code. Interior, don't worry about. Other than what do these functions serve, such as the door. What does that go? What's on the other side of that door?
Well,
that you can worry about down the road.
Okay. All right. So I can do that down the road. Okay.
Keeping in mind that anything that gets approved, whatever it serves, would have to be approvable. So in other words, if you get approved for that door, for example, and then whatever that door serves isn't approvable, you may have to come back to get a new door approval. But that's a design feature that you can do down the road for the interior. The most important thing is we need the detailed information of the exterior elements.
I mean, I have no problem with our ability to design a code compliant building. Okay, that's going to happen, and Craig, I feel comfortable that you're going to approve it. We've got to look at our own schedule, whether we can do the 18th or what's the option date, and I can get back to you by Monday. But
if you're going to do the 18th, then we're going to have a hearing. We need it at least a week in advance. So that's going to be a tight turnaround.
That's too tight. Yeah. Yeah. So the next option would be
the second Friday in January.
That's right.
Which is January 8th.
January 8th.
Second Friday, wouldn't be January 8th. Oh, January 8th, okay. Okay. That's, we've got all the holidays happening and so let me look at those dates. We'll look at those dates. So, okay. So where we stand now is we can't get a concept approval. We can just hear what you've said to us today and hopefully that's, that stands after the public approval. But the public approval is going to, now there's not going to be two public approvals. There's only going to be one public approval, right?
The goal is just one, Jane. If we have all the information together and the plan is the plan and so on, we can do it all in one meeting.
Okay, good. So that's what I want to shoot for. And you will not see, just you all won't see anything that is drastically different than what you've seen today, except potentially siding or no siding on the base. And I feel like the direction was to go along with the non-louvered windows at the cupola. So it's really about the siding and also just more refined details about lights and stair rails and greenhouse and things like that,
Yes,
right?
a little more specificity.
Right. Okay.
That's it.
All right. Thank you all for your
Jane, can you hear
time.
me?
Yeah.
What I would suggest is when we're offline, sometime this afternoon, give me a call and I'll explain to you identically to what I need for code review to get you moving forward.
Awesome.
That way
Thanks.
you'll have it all, and by the 18th, you shouldn't have a problem presenting it to this board.
Okay. Great. Because we've spent a lot of time figuring, because this little site is also very tricky code-wise, in terms of, we want it to be a seamless building that you can walk in and out of, and everybody can feel comfortable getting in and out of. So,
Understood.
Yes.
okay, thank you.
I know that you had wanted a different outcome, but again, I hope you understand that everyone on the board recognizes what a terrific thing you're doing for Hudson. So,
Thank you. Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate generally that you all are on board with our direction we're going. So thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, any other agenda items? If not, then I thank all y'all, and the meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.